Hey, what's up guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today, we're going to be talking about difficulty, okay? Or how to deal with difficulty, the mentality you want when facing it, and, basically how to navigate around it and kind of view it in a more positive light, okay? Because difficulty and facing it actually just means that you are growing. Okay, it's not that you are you're not good enough to solve the problem. It's that there is a problem that needs solving, and how you face it, okay, and how you deal with that problem will either make you feel worse or improve you as an artist and make you feel satisfied and better for solving that problem, right? So that's what we'll be talking about today. But before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe. Check out my Prince and Patreon if you want to support the channel. Consider becoming a channel member. And with that, let's get into it. So, let me paint you a scenario, okay? You're in the thick of art creation, okay? Something comes up and it's a problem, and you notice it, and you know it's a problem, and you're having a difficult time figuring it out, okay? There's something wrong, and you just there's something you can't quite figure it out, okay? Some people's response is to give up and maybe restart, right? Maybe restarting will fix the issue, right? Usually it doesn't, okay? And then there's the obvious issue, because you put so much work into the piece already, you want to fix the issue, right? And sometimes fixing the issue may let's say if you have issues somewhere in the face, okay, right? Sometimes the issue isn't actually the face, right? Perhaps it's something in the chin, or the collar, right? Or the distance between the neck and the, you know what I mean? It could be a subtler issue that you're thinking of. Sometimes maybe it's the spacing between the eye and the ear, you know what I mean? There's a wide swath of problems when it comes to art, right? But what we need to understand is that art in its essence is a problem-solving game, okay? And everyone basically knows that, okay? But there are times where a piece can be really difficult, and sometimes that will affect your mood. It'll affect the way you think, right? Sometimes you'll be so frustrated with something, and you'll be wrestling with it for a long time, and then you're like, oh, maybe I can never solve this problem. Maybe I can leave the piece with that problem, and maybe it's okay, right? Which usually it isn't. Most time people will notice, right? But it really depends on who's looking, your level, right? But the whole point is that when there's a problem, you need to put your best effort in solving it, okay? And sometimes that requires research. Sometimes you just got to play with it. Sometimes you just got to mess around, right? Sometimes you could solve the issue by leaving that problem in the background, working on another part of the piece, right? And then as you work, as you do other stuff, as you fix problems around it, you'll see something, and then you'll realize you're like, oh, it's this. Oh, maybe the nostril is too high or something, or something's too big, or something's too small, right? But it's very useful to know that. So sometimes we could just ignore the problem while we work on a different part of the piece, but we know that the problem's there, we acknowledge it, and we're letting our brains kind of calculate in the background, okay? Sometimes it is helpful to get a fresh set of eyes on it, right? Maybe a fellow artist. You could hey, I'm having this weird issue with this particular part, you know what I mean? And I'd like some help, right? And then they say oh, well, this this part is weird, and you're like, huh, I never really noticed that. And so that way you can surmount the issue, right? And it doesn't matter if of course you don't want to use people as a crutch all the time. You don't want to have help from people all the time to solve your problems, right? But it's helpful when you hit a wall to do that, okay? And sometimes it's okay to get help from other artists, right, to solve a problem. But in general, you want to be solving like 99% of the issues with a piece, okay? Because it will increase your knowledge and make you better, okay? And sometimes difficulty doesn't come in the form of something so simple, okay? Sometimes difficulty comes in the form of like your own mentality, right? Sometimes a piece just isn't working right, and like you're like, oh, I don't know if this piece is gonna turn out, right? I don't know if this piece will come alive, you know what I mean, like the way I want, you know what I mean? So in those problems, like you could, you know, it could last a while, right? So speaking from my own experience, right, I've had some difficulties with like so there's this piece right here. I've had some, you know, hard times here and there, but my previous piece, right, I did like a painting of the red rocks in Nevada, right, and there was a while there where the piece just wasn't like coming together, you know. It was taking a long time to get there, right? And I'm just like, I'm like, oh, sometimes I don't really know, but like I have to have faith, I have to push through it, right? And then there's that internal struggle within you, right? And like honestly, sometimes like the issue, like solving the thing is to just keep moving forward, okay? To not let the what you think is non-progress on the work stop you from making progress, okay? Sometimes you just got to keep moving to the next step, right? To the next step, right? And that has to do a lot with your presumptions about the piece, right? Sometimes you see a piece and then you're like, oh, this is not going to end up well, right? This is not going to end up good. Like I could already see it, right? And sometimes that's not necessarily true, okay? Sometimes it's just like you just need to fix this one thing and then boom, it all lines up, right? Sometimes you need to fix a lot of things, okay? Right? And you know, the whole point is that you don't avoid the challenge of that. You don't avoid the problem. You see the problem, you acknowledge it, and you work your way to fixing it, okay? However you may do that, okay? But the whole thing is that you attempt it, okay? And maybe you wrestle with it. Maybe there's something you're like, oh, you know, and maybe it'll take a while. Sometimes a problem that you have will take multiple pieces to fix, okay? Maybe the problem isn't so simple, right? Maybe there's just like, there's something in your work that you're like, this, it's good, but it's not there, right? There's many different layers. Oh shit. There's many different layers to how a problem can surface on a piece, okay? So in those times when there's like a whole like phase of difficulty, right, that can really affect how you feel, right, and how you like your mood, right? And then like sometimes you'll start questioning yourself. You're like, oh, am I even a real artist? Like, can I do this? Like, am I like, do I have the skills to actually, you know, put up with the challenge, right? And it's, you know, honestly, like art is a very humbling experience, right? I don't know if you guys get this, but I definitely do, where I'm working on a piece and like it gets, and like it's just not working the way I want, right? And I question myself and I'm like, dude, am I even like good? Like, do I even know what I'm doing, right? And the answer is usually yes. The answer is always yes, in fact. But there is the questioning of the self, of like did I lose it? You know, like, am I like, is this piece gonna turn out, right? And you know, especially for work that's like large and like takes a lot of time to really get going, right? And sometimes you want to rush to fix that problem, but maybe the rushing actually caused the issue, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? There's a lot to deal with. There's a lot of layers, and like sometimes it's this, but maybe it's that, you know. And it's like, and so that could lead to a lot of frustration, and like, you know, like I said, it'll affect your mood. Sometimes you'll just be like, you know, you'll be all day like, fucking, I can't figure out this problem, you know, I can't, you know what I mean, like, you know. And then you have this internal like twisting inside of you, right? And then it makes you put into question like your viability as an artist, your skill. You know, you question your you know your the ceiling at which you can rise. And like, let me tell you one thing, okay? There is, for artists, there is no ceiling for your skill. There is no ceiling for your ability, okay? The ceiling that lies above you is the one that you put there, okay? You can always get better. You could always rise. You could always push more, right? If you're a real artist, okay, you could always be improving. Does that always happen? You know? Well, sometimes people like to work within their comfort zone, okay? People like to not challenge themselves. Sometimes people are like, oh, you know, I just want to make an easy piece, right? And in my eyes, the problem with that is that if things become too easy, the work is less satisfying, okay? In my eyes, the work should have some kind of difficulty to it. It doesn't have to be like ridiculously difficult. It could be an easier piece, right? But there has to be some element that like you're gonna have to chew on for a little bit, right? And that's where I'm getting to the point where like I find the chewing enjoyable, right? Where once I found it like frustrating and like I now realize that the chewing, the wrestling, the twisting and stuff like that, that's growth, okay? That's growth. That's you pushing up against that ceiling. That's you and like I want to go higher. I want to raise it up a little bit more, right? I want to push my skill a little bit more, right? And the skills could go in many directions, many different like stats, you know what I mean? You want to push your stat up, right? And sometimes people just work within that. You know, they're like, okay, well, this is my stat. This is how far as it goes, you know? But the best way is to, you know, push against, you know, raise it up, right? And I think the goal for most artists is to push those things, right? And how do you know that you're pushing up against it? And that is because it's difficult, because there's a challenge, because there's something in you that's saying like, there's something like, right? And so like a lot, like, you know, that piece I spoke about earlier, the Red Rocks, right? I was gripping with it for a while, and you know, I was just like, you know, I know in my brain that all I have to do is just to keep move like the next step, move to the next step, right? You know, and then like whether it's like fixing issues, whether it's, you know, just progressing in the painting, right? You want like that's a good way to think about it, right? The more difficult the problem becomes, the less steps ahead you think, okay, right? So when it's really difficult, you know, like super hard, you don't know, just take one step, the next stroke, okay? You may not know what to do 50 strokes from now, but you know at the very least the next stroke, okay? The next line, you know what I mean? So just work your way through that, okay? Experiment sometimes, right? Maybe you need to change something, maybe, like, you know what I mean? It's a huge wide game, okay? But when you think about it, when you see the difficulty, see it as a good thing. See it as, oh, I've hit something difficult and I'm trying to fix it, and I'm wrestling with it. It means that you're growing. It means that you're learning. It means that you're finding a barrier and you're trying to break past it, okay? Or you're trying to go over, left, right, down, underneath it, you know what I mean? And you're approaching it from many angles, right? And then that's when something might hit you and you'll find a new angle that you're like, I never thought about that before. I never thought about doing things that way before. And now you have a new weapon in your arsenal, you know what I mean? So those challenges, those difficulties, they're actually really good for you, you know what I mean? They make you better, they make you stronger, right? And as you get stronger, as you get better at the work, as your works become better, you will gain more confidence, right? But that confidence, okay, like, it's good, it's great. You want, like, making art with confidence, like, fantastic, okay? That's what you really want, right? but that confidence should lead you to larger challenges, okay? To things that are more difficult, right? It's like playing a video game, right? You start off, you kind of suck, right? And then you get better, yeah, right? And then, you beat the game on normal mode, okay? And it's like, well, now it's time to go to a higher difficulty, okay? Right? You need, like, the challenges that you faced before aren't quite the same challenges that they were before, you know? Did I just repeat myself? I don't know. But you get what I'm saying, right? They're not so difficult anymore. So you need a new challenge, right? And sometimes the challenge can be size, right? Sometimes the size needs to be the challenge, right? Sometimes the challenge is fidelity, right? The level of render that you do, right? Like how crisp and beautiful you want it to be. Sometimes the challenge is, how do I make it looser, right? How do I stop being so stiff and so attention focused, right? Every artist has different problems and different flaws that they need to work on, right? But the whole point is that when you see difficulty, you no longer fear it, okay? And I'm not saying like when you hit difficulty, it's gonna be like a good feeling, right? It's like it's like working out. You know what I mean? You know that it's good for you, but that it's annoying, and it's you have to do it, and it's like pain filled, right? And you're gonna be sore, and you know what I mean? It's like it's all that shit, right? But knowing that by working through it, you're gonna grow, you're gonna become better, okay? And like maybe a year from now, the problems that you're facing are gonna be so much bigger in scale, so much harder to figure out, more abstracted, okay? And that is when you really start, understanding who you are as an artist, right? You start carving out your play style, you know what I mean? And sometimes you want to shift it up too, right? That will also give you like more abilities, like it's the whole point is that you don't feel so tiny, that you don't feel so like, oh, I only have this, I can only do this art right here, this small thing that I have right here, this is all I can do, right? No, you don't want that. You want to expand, okay? You want to have limitless options. You want to have many ways to tackle a problem, right? And like maybe you could learn to tackle a problem in a different medium. Maybe you could learn a different way to tackle a problem from somebody else, from tutorials, right? There's so many different ways. Maybe you just learn something for yourself, okay? And that's usually the best way, right? Because then you start understanding yourself as an artist, what you want to put out there, what are your priorities as an artist, and then that will allow you to find your voice, okay? And the voice usually comes out to other people as some form of style, okay? And people tend to think that style is the accumulation of like little mistakes that you make, you know what I mean? And like that's not true. It's your preference, okay? Mistakes are mistakes. Mistakes are unintentional, okay? Mistakes are made not on purpose, okay? And left there, okay? You want to fix every problem possible, okay? And make yourself better. And through this, okay, and you will make mistakes. They're like, that's just natural. That's just what's gonna happen. But you need to understand that a problem that left unattended is not a mistake, but something that you left there, okay, on purpose, okay? And sometimes a mistake can actually look really good, right? With like Bob Ross, sometimes you make a happy mistake, that's something wonderful about using traditional medium. Like that's one thing that I feel like digital you don't really get that much, where you'll do a weird stroke or something on accident, and then like it actually turns out to be good, right? So that's another way you can actually solve problems. You can actually solve a problem accidentally, but you observe it, you analyze it, and you realize that like, oh, this is something that I could use. You know what I mean? So there are many methods to facing difficulty, okay? And there are many approaches. It's like almost infinite, right? And that's like kind of the goal of what we're doing, right? But all I want to say is, when you, like, a lot of people, when they hit difficulty, they view it as a very unpleasant experience that is like, just like, I don't want that, right? And I got to tell you that difficulty is the way to get better. Difficulty will make you grow. Okay, difficulty is not something to look at with ire. Okay, it's something that when you see it, you embrace it, and you understand that it's not, the whole thing is that it's not meant to feel good. Okay, but by the end of it, when you figure out that problem, the satisfaction is immense. Okay, and you'll start feeling a lot better about the piece. You'll start feeling a lot better about the work. So that piece that I made, you know, I fixed the problem, I finished it, and I feel so much better. I feel so much more satisfied, right? And now that piece has a special meaning to me because it embodies like this one problem that I had. I couldn't figure it out, right? And easy pieces are nice when they come, but in most cases, when you're making a piece, you want to observe something that you will find challenging, okay? And challenges will naturally rise up. But when you see it, embrace it, and know that it is the ceiling. It is making you push beyond yourself, okay? And in the end, that you'll grow, okay? And that's how you'll know. Because the more difficulty you face, the more you're gonna grow, okay? And that's just kind of like a life thing, you know what I mean? But especially in art, right? Yeah. I hope you guys, when you face difficulty, you look at it in a new light and you see it as a growing thing, okay, and as a positive thing, right? And you know, because you know, I don't like to face like a lot of difficult things, right? But it's worth it in the end, right? I think we'd end the video here, guys. Please, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my Prince of Patreon if you want to support the channel. Consider becoming a channel member. All that bullshit. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.